So it looks like we might have some more confirmation of the next Warhammer 40k balance update, and a few details as to some of the armies getting content in it. Seems there might be new detachments on the way for the Dark Angels, Tyranids, and Chaos Space Marines, so let's talk a little bit about the update, the potential small leaks, and rumours as to a couple of the specifics of the detachments that might be coming. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking about Warhammer 40k's impending balance update, where it now seems that we've got a lot more confirmation that that's just around the corner, and as mentioned, some specifics as to new detachments for some armies. Games Workshop's next balance Dataslate and all the things that go with it has really quite a lot of reasons to be coming out sometime within the next 2 weeks. They normally have a sort of 3-month update cycle, and that would have landed it fairly squarely on early June. That would really imply that it's sometime in the next few weeks, and on top of that it was also likely to be dropping alongside the next mission deck. That mission deck is now within the 2-week pre-order window, and often when they do digital content to go alongside physical releases, it typically comes along in the pre-order window for that thing as opposed to just after it, which again would really imply that it's either going to be this week or next week. Games Workshop had also confirmed that their tournament companion will be out on the 7th of June, so again that implies that it'll be before then, within the next 2 weeks. So basically between all that, it looks like the next big digital update is really not far away. Over the last 24 hours though, it looks like another big teaser has dropped for exactly what's going to be coming in it. The factions for 3 different detachments appear to have been leaked. It's provoked a fair bit of discussion, and there seem to be a fair amount of rumours actually talking about the specifics of these detachments, which obviously is less reliable, but certainly interesting enough to be worth talking about. And we seem to be on quite a good roll with text leaks being accurate. The last 5 that I've talked about on the channel have all turned out to be on the money, though we don't know for these ones of course. Here's the rough contents for what we'd expect out of 40k's next digital update, the main core thing being the balanced dataslate and the Minotaur field manual. That'll be the points and rules updates, hopefully aimed at improving Warhammer 40k faction balance, making units that have fallen by the wayside just a little bit more scary or fun. And in 10th edition, Games Workshop both seem to have been doing that with actual individual units with their points costs and rules changes, and also tweaking detachments from time to time, which I think has been quite nice to try and make them just a little bit more playable for their respective factions. There's a few notable things at the moment that look like they're stomping the meta that might have a good chance to attract nerfs, and given that they usually like to update field manuals and things all in one go, I suspect that the 1000 Suns and Space Wolf points cost will probably show up in the updated field manual when the balanced data slate goes live, as opposed to having their own little release. Then we'll have the tournament companion document, which we've already had some reveals from. That'll go with the mission deck for competitive style missions, making the no prisoners mission not a fixed one for competitive. The exact mission list, which cuts out a few of them such as unexploded ordnance and burden of trust, and a terrain guide for roughly what to play them on, and then a base sizing guide which I thought was interesting, which could be helpful enough just to have a rough official list if you're making conversions and things as well. Then Games Workshop have said that there's going to be new detachments coming from a few armies. They stated that at the last balance update when we got a few other ones like the Custodious Lines of the Emperor and the all rather overpowered Orcs Mordaka before that got nerfed, and it seems that those are the ones that we've got some teasers of today. Beyond that, there'll be a few more errata changes most likely, and this one maybe feels like it's just a little bit higher chance than normal of having some core rules things shaken up. In the Pariah Nexus update last year, they made some big changes to the core rules of the game, altering stratagems, and even the core movement rules for some reason mid-edition. I guess we'll see if they go quite as radical with this one. In any case, the rumours and leaks today seem to come from Art of War's YouTube channel, who basically uploaded a bunch of placeholder video previews early. I think the idea is that they're going to be going through some of the detachments live. They're probably meant to be set to private, but looks like their video names were new detachments for Dark Angels, Tyranids, and Chaos Space Marines. Looks like they were up briefly and then got privated after they got shared widely around the internet. Obviously it's not 100% confirmation, and it would be pretty hilarious bait if they managed to fool everyone like that, though I strongly suspect not. Games Workshop's partner content creators get the Dataslate contents and points well early to allow them time to make things for when they go live at release. Obviously big news for the factions involved, though beyond that I guess there's yet more evidence that the balance patch is very close. The exact date was interesting as they looked like they were scheduled for the 31st of May, which would be a Saturday morning I think. Maybe that will be when it goes live, but there's a pretty good chance that that was a placeholder. Games Workshop's balanced data slates have typically gone live either on Wednesdays or Thursdays recently. I'd still probably guess that that's either going to happen either this week or next week. It also does imply that the data slate contents are already set in stone, all the points costs and the rules changes are as they are, and there's no chance to update them now that they've sent them out to their content creators, so they wouldn't have any more chance to react to more data. For example, Death Guard have only just come out, but they seem to be winning a whole bunch of tournaments very, very quickly. So it might imply they just might not have chance to react to that kind of thing. In any case though, for the detachments themselves, there do seem to have been a few people chiming in with rumours of what they think the detachments are. In any case, taking a quick look at those few factions, first up we have the Tyranids. As armies in 40k go, their detachments have been at least relatively well balanced since their codex came out. Invasion Fleet has generally been the most played and most successful recently, though Vanguard Onslaught, Crusher Stampede and Assimilation Swarm have all been doing alright, and having 4 or 5 viable detachments is certainly more than you can say for a bunch of armies out there. A new Tyranid detachment being added to the mix would certainly be pretty big interest, given just how many people jumped on the faction since 10th edition. It looks like in the discussion around the elite detachment, I've seen a good few people claiming insider knowledge who seem to state that it's a Trigon and Morlock flavoured detachment, with at least a few caveats stating people not to get their hopes up about it being too strong or anything. I guess we'll see if that turns out to be the case, but it definitely feels like it could be a pretty logical one for Games Workshop to do, one focused around the Burrower style units. They were units that didn't really feel like they had a particularly obvious home when the Tyranid Codex came out, and then after that, in last year's balance data slates, they were given the Vanguard Invaders keyword to allow them a few more synergies with that detachment. It feels like it could be an obvious theme that they could go down if they wanted to create a new Tyranid detachment, perhaps representing High Fleet Jormungandr, who likes to deploy these en masse and undermine the enemy from below. I do kind of wonder if it might be a bit of a tie-in with the new Ravener miniatures that they have coming out in that Kill Team Typhon box set. There's a good chance that could be released in the very near future. So maybe that's part of the motivation for that, to have a sort of burrowing organism themed detachment. Let me know what your thoughts are in any case. What would you like to see as a Tyranid detachment? Next up of the 3, we've got the Dark Angels, which my first thought was it's perhaps weird to see them turn up again. They had their 3 detachments in the Codex, then the Lion's Blade one that came from their Grotmus things, which already, to be honest, felt like really quite a generous amount for a supplement style book, particularly when they can access all the ones from Core Codex Space Marines as well. I guess they're also a pretty popular faction with their recent core model releases, so it could have quite a lot of appeal. My first thought was, though, that a new detachment isn't really what the Dark Angels need. They already have 4 detachments in the Unforgiven Task Force, Inner Circle, Lion's Blade and Company of Hunters. It seems like at least some people have some good success with the Company of Hunters, though most of the rest are maybe in the awkward spot of being kind of interesting and having some genuine strength, but just not adding quite as much as the Core Codex Gladius or Stormlance Task Force, both of which have easy access to advance and charge for their armoured elites, some nice other support besides that, and Stormlance can help out their mounted Ravenwing units too. Feels like another detachment isn't necessarily what they need, rather than balance updates to the previous. It seems for the Dark Angels there's a rather specific set of rumours going around for them. Again, I've seen this posted in multiple places. It could be absolutely made up for all I know, but it doesn't really seem anything too massively surprising, and plenty of stuff that we've seen before. Apparently the core rule for the detachment will make them all tougher, with a -1 to wound for infantry and mounted units if the strength is greater than their toughness. That'd be pretty great in general, though super nice for Deathwing Knights I suppose. And then a few stratagems things, the line potentially having a return to reserves, a +2 strength for ranged weapons in some way, and a charge in the enemy turn stratagem, which they have done quite a few of up to now, often having 2 command points for a charge within 6 inches if it's available. Obviously I really wouldn't read too much into that. Certainly seems pretty plausible for a route that they could go down with the Dark Angels if they wanted to. It does seem potentially really quite powerful to work with their Deathwing Knights if it's not made up, though I guess we'll wait and see what we get. Another thing I wonder about this one is whether or not it might follow the sort of new Space Wolves pattern that they've had for the Divergent Chapter detachments. That one's had a whole bunch of synergies with stratagems and detachment rules, and some enhancements only locked to Space Wolves specific models. So stratagems that wouldn't work on, say, Space Wolf Intercessors, for example. I kind of wonder whether the Dark Angels might have some a bit like that. It might not be such great news for like Green Wing style units if they did decide to go that way though. Finally for the detachments, there's the Chaos Space Marines. They're another army with an absolute ton of detachments, though I think for the Force of Chaos it's maybe more appropriate for them than plenty of others, just given how much depth they have and various different flavours of them with all the theming of different legions, plenty of renegade warbands and more besides. Again, it feels like certain existing detachments could use help. Maybe the Dread Talons, perhaps the most talked about and obvious out of them. It just hasn't really added all that much raw strength since it came out, and definitely felt like one that they could make a bit better if they wanted to. I've not seen anyone posting any rumours for the Chaos Space Marines. Maybe first thoughts for themed ones could be a Word Bearer's more specific one, actually focusing around the Master Possession, Dark Apostles and Possessed and things, as opposed to the more generic Deity Mark style one that they borrowed from the Index. Maybe we could see something like the Bellicor Shadow Legion style one, but for Chaos Space Marines, with a big focus on allying in a lot of demons, more or less 50-50. Maybe one to represent the Fallen could be good, some sort of allied traitor guard style thing. We could do a sort of sorcerer themed detachment, maybe a dark mirror to the Space Marine Librarius Conclave one. Feels like there's loads of possibilities that they could do for them. Let me know what you'd like to see down in the comments. Otherwise, I guess alongside the new detachments, we'll be getting a bunch of stuff to do the more standard balance things of Warhammer 40k. Currently there's definitely a few factions that seem to be poking their heads above the parapet and maybe attracting nerfs. Emperor's Children have been doing rather well with their coterie of the conceited, particularly with things like Winged Demon Princes being spammed. Inari with their big movement shenanigans have been kind of on the chopping block for nerfs for a while. Maybe Chaos Demons and Imperial Knights also being right on the upper end as well. Death Guard feel like they're one of the most standout factions of Warhammer 40k, at least in the early days post their codex. I do wonder if it could be too early for nerfs for them though, just given that they've only really just had their official points costs and been hitting tournaments, and if the Dataslate and points costs are all finalised already, there just might not have been enough time to incorporate any changes for them. For armies needing the most help, Imperial Agents are the obligatory mention, otherwise maybe Sisters, Tau and Black Templars all seem to have been having a tougher time than most recently. I guess they might have a bit more chance for some buffs as a result. And then beyond that, there's a vast amount of armies in 40k that have various internal balance complaints. The Dark Angels attachments might be an obvious one talked about already, otherwise things like Chaos Knight War Dog spam. Who knows, maybe the 8th or 9th balance Dataslate in 10th edition might eventually give them motivation to fix that. I suspect there might be a redress with Gilliman versus the other chapters for the Space Marines. He just makes the Ultramarines vastly more powerful than many of the others right now. Maybe the Orc Buggies and the Cult of Speed could get looked at. There's loads of other detachments like the Dread Talons as mentioned, but plenty more. And of course he could go through literally every army in the game and focus on their auto-includes or never take units. In any case though, let me know what you think of the prospect of Dark Angels, Tyranids and Chaos Space Marine detachments turning up in the near future. Hopefully it won't be too long before we find out, but I'll be interested to hear what you'd most like to see for those armies when we do get the digital update. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll certainly aim to cover all the detachments and the data slate when it's out. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. We'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, with new ones out just about every day. If you'd like to support, then the channel has a Patreon page which is linked down in the video description, plus there's all the affiliate discount links as well, which help to support the channel if you do happen to pick up any Warhammer models in the near future. In any case though, an enormous thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.